Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Blessing. Thank you so much for holding this conversation. It's a critical conversation at a critical time. So today, together with my speakers, we're going to be discussing redefining success, how to map your career, motherhood, and life for optimal fulfillment. As Kristen said, I'm Erin Ehrenberg. I'll be moderating this conversation. After a career as an IP attorney and social impact executive in tech and entertainment, I pivoted when I had our third baby. I launched Totem Women. Totem means whole in Latin. It's now a thriving community of modern mothers and a vehicle for me as its leader to really be a part of creating systemic change for women at home and at work. Our mission is to help modern mothers live whole lives. So this conversation is mission critical. In order for us to be whole, we have to create lives and that reflect our values and our very definition of success. That's up to us. That's very empowering. It can feel overwhelming. And if there were any gift of a global pandemic, might it be that we have the opportunity to look back at how we lived before the pandemic, how that impacted our experience during the pandemic, and how we want to move forward. So inherent in defining success, we get to take a look at that and create a new way forward. So I'm very grateful to sponsors of this amazing summit like Vivi and Benefit Bump. And I also want to say that if you're a mom who's listening and you still feel burnout, exhausted, unsure of the path forward, guess what? Not only are you not alone, but 83% of mothers in a 1,350 mother poll, 83% of us are burnout. Okay, so you're not alone. What we want to do today is have a conversation about how do we define success and redefine success for a new way forward. The speakers we have today are perfect for this conversation. We've got Nikki Adamson. She's the co-founder of Hustle Hunters, who after becoming a mother herself, transitioned from full-time to part-time employment. And it sounds like she had a lot of negotiation along the way. And she's now leveraging that to help other mothers find fulfillment in that kind of shift through Hustle Hunters. We also have Nie Anikanatang, the founder of Ace Beauté. She launched Ace 6 years ago. She's bootstrapped it, and she has 2 little kids under 4, and they're only 13 months apart. So she is a busy mom and has an amazing perspective. Neha Rush is the founder of Mother Entitled. She's also a mom of 2, and she created a platform for women who are ambitious and intentionally slowing down and pausing their career to allow more room for family life. So with these wonderful speakers having been introduced, I want to go round robin to each of you. And Nie, I want to start with you. When I say the word success, what comes up?
To me, when I hear the word success, it's something that's very personal. Everybody has their own definition of success. For me as an entrepreneur, it might be different from someone that has, a regular 9 to 5. And so for me, the word success is very personal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. How about you, Neha?
I would add to personal, which I love, private. I think success can be a really private thing, and it can challenge you to really tune into what matters most. And what I've learned is there's such a range of metrics beyond salary and title that are constantly iterating, and it's an evolving process, and it can change year over year.
I love that. How about you, Nikki?
Yeah, for me, it's something I'm proud of. If I can look back on a day of work and feel proud, if I can look back on, wow, we went to the Saturday, we're going to the pumpkin patch. And if I can look back on that and feel like I was really present, that feels successful to me, both small and large things for me. Anything I can look back and feel proud on.
You guys, we did 3 Ps. We did personal, private, and proud. Way to go. I love that. I love that. These are 3 great things to unpack. So I want to talk a little bit about have these concepts stay the same for you both before and after motherhood, and then also pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. Talk to me about that a little bit. Neha, we'll start with you. Before you became a mom, how would you have answered that question? If somebody said, what's success mean?
For sure. I think that, the pandemic really amplified reflection that was already happening for me in motherhood, right? I think we all have this juncture in motherhood that forces us to reconsider what life looks like. And pre-motherhood, I think I followed conventional wisdom that society tells us to measure by very traditional metrics of success, salary and title. And I was definitely, especially in my 20s and early 30s, on that track. When I had my first son, and I suddenly felt this confidence and clarity in a career pause, and then eventually starting my own platform, I really was challenged to think about, let me set aside my ego and come up with the metrics of success that align with any given year. And for the first year, that was presence, that was wholly presence. Then it became impact through Mother Untitled. The following year, it evolved and it sort of compounded on when I had my second daughter. It became personal development and really looking inward into areas of growth like calm that I wanted to work on. And I think going back to the idea of privacy, I think, the traditional metrics tend to be very public facing, and looking inward and measuring yourself against yourself was a really meaningful way to do it. And I think it's allowed me to also grow a business alongside from a place of enjoyment, because candidly, there have been times where I've had to grow Mother Untitled much more slowly because I was focusing on presence. And if I shifted the metric of success to be more about impact, it helped me come to it from a place of enjoyment.
I love that. Can you talk to us a little bit about when you first made that shift? I mean, often, at Totem, we talk about the big revolution when you become a mom and how it impacts your body, your mind, your ambition, your relationships. Landing on ambition, you can look back now and say, okay, I shifted these metrics. How difficult was that moment where you went from conventional metrics to rejiggering how you wanted to measure success? What did that look like for you?
Well, I go back to the idea of it being an iterative process, right? So, some of it was just fluid, as in, when I had my first son, I felt a real desire to be there, and I had the privilege to be able to make a choice to be there. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I felt a call to pick up more consulting work, and that helped financially, and that felt right for a period of time, and it helped me stay connected, which was one of the success metrics, but equally felt, it gave me the room for family life. And then eventually when I took the time I was allocating to consulting and put it toward Mother Untitled, that shift took a lot of calibration around what does this, because that was a bigger career pivot away from advertising, right? And into something new. And what would that mean long term? And what it came back down to were two things. One, trusting that career's a long game. And I had the ability to make choices. So I was going to make choices based on what felt right in terms of delivering on a sense of connectedness, a sense of community, a sense of meaningful work, aligned with the flexibility I wanted in the home. But equally, I trusted myself. And I think a lot of this comes down to trusting yourself, not only that knowing that every decision is impermanent, but that you have a skill set that is growing in every context, and one point of your story leads to the next. And I really trusted that whatever element or configuration of work in life would lead me to the next, and it would be an evolving process.
I love that. That's really inspiring, and I think really relevant to every mom. As we shift, we're constantly iterating. And I think those are concepts that are always helpful to kind of recalibrate through. Nia, you have talked a little bit in the past about social media and its impact on how we view success, and you gave your word as personal. So talk to us a little bit about that. How do we look at social media and be personal in our success in a world that's serving up images of what that ought to look like?
Absolutely. And so, we look on social media and we see we see people defining success in, to them it's a personal way, but it almost looks like, it's a structured way. It's, like Neha said, it's a salary, it's a title, it's your kids, your kids they look well behaved, and we all have this perception that, oh my God, I'm not successful because my life doesn't look like that. And the one thing, I think we all know this, but I think the one thing that we need to keep reminding ourselves is that's just social media. Everybody, you present your best, right? Nobody ever presents. I mean, some people do, but most people don't present when they're down or when things look rough, and so a lot of times I have to remind myself not to base success on that. For me, the way that I said success is personal is it could be on a daily basis, it could be on a monthly basis. Like Nikki said, going to a family outing and being present for your kids, that could be success. It doesn't have to look perfect. It doesn't have to look like it's wrapped in a nice box with a ribbon, for me. And so that's why I said success is personal, because for me, success is a daily thing. Are my kids well fed today? Did I spend time with them? Did I make sure that I wasn't on work calls even after work hours? That's just what success is to me. And that definition changes on a monthly or a daily basis as needed.
I love that. Your business caught fire pretty quickly after you launched. And then if I'm doing the math, a couple years after that, you had your first baby. Talk to us about that shift of, having been a successful founder who caught kind of monetary success and some of the traditional metrics of success before becoming a mom. Did you have to shift? And in what ways did you have to shift after you had your first baby?
Absolutely. I always joke that my business is my first baby because I started that shortly before I had my first son, and it was difficult. I was trying to grow that business and I couldn't even enjoy myself. It was, there were things that I had envisioned what motherhood would be like, taking pictures. I had so many outfits planned. I was going to be doing the monthly 1 month, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and I mean, it was, it was hard because I was trying to grow my business and I was also trying to, obviously cater to my baby. And at a point I had to step back and say, and kind of analyze what was more important to me. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was, being a mom. And I took a step back. Even though the business was growing, there were things that I said no to. There were opportunities that I said no to, that I turned down because I knew that it was going to take me away from being the mom that I wanted to be. And shortly after that, 13 months later, I had my daughter. So now I had 3 little babies, and it was really hard. It was a struggle, and that's why, to me, I take success like on a daily basis. I get home because a lot of times, since obviously it's my business, I'm growing it. I get emails. I work at every hour of the day. If an email is coming in, I'm not waiting till the next day. I'm replying to that email, but I've made sure to make that I'm present. I've made sure, to keep that like mental note that I need to be present for my family. Mm-hmm. And so, there's no hard cutoff for emails, but if my kid wants me to do something, he's showing me something or she's showing me something, I need to be present right there. That email can wait. Nothing's going to come crashing down if I don't reply to an email in 2 hours. And so it's been a struggle trying to balance it. And, just talking about balance there, balance is also very personal. For me, balance is I'm trying to juggle being a wife, being a mom, being a business owner. And so sometimes that gets tough, but a lot of times I still have to prioritize my family over my business, even though my business is my first baby.
Absolutely. We at Totem say balance is bull, and look at the concept of wholeness. And if you look at the definition of balance, it talks about holding things in a correct way. And so baked into that is this perfectionism idea that there's a correct way to do it. And some other mom is doing it better. Some other woman's doing it better. Some other family, like mealtime, goes better. And the fact is, we can all create what whole looks like for us. And so on that note, Nikki, for you, you had a shift where you went from full-time, and you had a notion that part of helping you feel whole was shifting to, you're working full-time, shifting to part-time. And so talk to us a little bit about that journey, how did you conceive of that notion? How did you make it happen? And how did that turn into the business that you started?
Yeah, great question, Erin. Thanks. I want to echo a little bit of what Nia and Neha, you've mentioned in prioritization. Prioritization changed for me, and I got to see that in the logistical space. I felt like I was kind of on the top of my career in tech sales. The startup landscape has been most of my career, and then recognized after having my daughter Izzy, who's now 4, I kind of left that role, didn't feel like I could fly cross country every week anymore, and kind of had this realization when I would go into new interviews that logistically, I needed to come to work at 9:30 instead of 9 because that's when daycare opened. And I needed to get that question answered really early. And it just changed the whole tone and conversation of an interview question. We weren't talking about the work. We weren't talking about building the company or the vision, even though I was really excited to do those big things, because my priority was coming through in these questions of, I need to know that my kid's covered. I need to know that these other pieces are good so that I can actually be present at work. And ended up joining Kate at Milk Stork. We want to find a founder to really follow and kind of see someone really walk the talk. It's a great one. And I was able to work part-time there and, be present and do it all. And she taught me that you can do big things and also close your laptop and be with your kids, which was a huge gift to be given. So then kind of spinning out of that, I started Hustle Hunters, and we're a recruiting firm. We help startups because startups are kind of this space. They can do anything they want. And I was originally applying to startups and heard consistently like, oh, we don't do that. We don't do part-time. We don't do flexibility. We're a startup. You're always on. And kind of thought like, you can do whatever you want. You're a startup. That's why you exist. So kind of moving beyond that. Now I work with startups who are open to that, who really want to center equity in what they're doing. And I kind of saw myself as a mom, recognized kind of the privilege I had of, I actually have a spouse in tech. I could take time away. For me, part-time was it for a while. Now I'm back working full-time, but it really let me define what was important to me. What did I want in that moment of my career? And then when I look on the talent market, any recruiter or hiring manager, if you look out there, especially in the tech scene, I think most sectors right now are telling you there's no talent. And here to say there's plenty of talent out there. We just need to redefine what is the box that we're asking our talent to be put into. And is it maybe not even a box, right? So for me, originally that was being able to work part-time. At Hustle Hunters, that's a big part of what we do. When we talk to a candidate, we talk about what does flexibility look like for you right off the bat. Ask us some kind of this like less pressure, less power dynamic, more back channel question to figure that out. And then if it's a match, great. And if not, that's okay too. But ask us all those really hard questions of like, is it okay if my kid's in the background of things? These are the times I need to work. Can I work from home on Fridays? Would I be the first member of the queer community that's openly out at this company? Hard questions like that are challenging because you kind of end up outing yourself asking, but we try to also be proactive in the answer. So I'm kind of sharing all those examples to show that, if you're watching this and realizing like, I don't know if I fit in my workplace, you're not alone. There's a huge, powerful movement, specifically of moms, mentioned like folks kind of being ejected from the workplace who are realizing this didn't work for me, but that doesn't mean we're not ambitious. It doesn't mean we don't have big ideas, and that may or may not be part of the traditional workforce. But I think we have a little more power today in what that looks like. So if you're interested in startup roles, hit us up. We've got some great ones at really supportive companies, but kind of recognizing I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's not an easy path to go like burst out a part-time role. And most of the roles we work are actually full-time roles that are just with supportive companies, and recognizing that, the ethos of one company by another is not the same. You kind of have to ask those hard questions early and hope that there's a forum for that. And kind of the parting advice I'll give there of like making your way is you're not trying to sneak in the back door. We want a company that wants all of us. We want to be able to talk about our kids at work and be here for that. That's an important piece to remember, that like, if you want to disclose if you're a parent, do it. If not, don't do it. But you get to make that personal choice, but know that you want someone that wants all of you. You deserve that.
I love that. Well, and I love this buffer that you provide, because even though legally, you're not really allowed to ask somebody a lot of personal questions that you're getting into. However, when those things come forward in an interview, that certainly impacts the decisions that are made, especially in sort of like high stress environments. And so for you to be that buffer, it actually helps on both sides, because you're able to really get an understanding of who the candidate is, and for the candidate understand what they really want. I'm also curious a little bit about when you went to negotiate for part-time. what did you do? What did you create a proposal? What did that look like? And then like thereby, what do you advise candidates if they're looking for part-time? So
yeah, great question. Something I'll add quickly is I actually had a conversation with a client today in the startup landscape. And, we were mentioning how we were kind of building out an offer package for candidates, talking through like what's really important there. And they mentioned to me, like, they're like, we love that you brought us a candidate that had a career gap, that actually took time off to be with their family. And they said, we want to hire this person because of that career gap, because they value their time so much that they did that. So that's something I just wanted to share quickly.
I love that.
As part of that. And then those negotiations, my advice is to make it as easy as possible, and give as much clarity and structure as possible. So that's in any flexibility ask, to be honest, is figuring out what are the logistics that I want. For me, it was, I want to work 3 days a week. I don't care what days those are, but based on your business needs, it's probably Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever those days are, right? Saying, this is the salary you set up. I'm going to be working 60% of the time, so I'm prepared to take 60% of that money that you set up. Just making it as easy as possible. Otherwise, that uncertainty can be really overwhelming to put on a hiring manager or a team. If that's saying, I really feel like I need to do my workout during the day, I want to do yoga from 12 to 1 every day. Saying really clear, I know that's a problem because that impacts this one meeting that we're having every week. And this is my proposition, is that we're going to shorten that meeting to 30 minutes and we're going to do it earlier in the day. And I've already checked everyone's calendar. So making it easy and being proactive. And then proposing a time frame for a pilot can be pretty successful. Hey, let's try this for 1 month and let's regroup. And success will look like X, Y, and Z. Just being really clear, because a manager, when they hear flexibility, a lot of times as humans, we jump to worst case scenario so quickly.
Absolutely. Great advice. And the trial period is huge. We also have some questions from the audience that I want to get to. So along these lines, how do you negotiate flexibility when you work in a big company that doesn't really allow for that? And taking a break from your career isn't an option. I think you answered that a little bit, but if there's anything that you wanted to add.
Yeah, really just showing up and asking those questions with a manager, and asking for permission and letting them kind of be your advocate and figuring out what is that. I found a lot of power in just reaching out to other moms and asking what flexibility they've gotten and just making those lists. Is it taking more phone calls instead of Zoom meetings so that you can do the laundry while you're doing that? Trying to figure out, sometimes there's small things and sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's redefining, we've turned away clients and turned away the opportunity to work on roles because we realize as a team, we don't want to be working 50 hours a week. It's actually really important to keep us time bound. If you're not in that decision-making spot, that's a hard call to go with. But knowing that you're not alone and finding other folks on your team is a really good way to make sure that there's a little bit of power in that. It is so hard to hire right now. I can't impress that upon you all enough. If you're in a role, please know that you should be valued, and there's more power than you've ever had before to take there.
Absolutely. I'm going to switch into a different sort of question here for Nia. What are some indicators for you that you need to examine the metrics you use to define success for yourself? i.e., when priorities are off balance and need a shift, how do you know? So if you're feeling like things aren't working out, what are some indicators for you that you're like, oh, it's time for me to do a check-in and rejigger?
Absolutely. The first thing I always do is go back to the drawing board. If you set those matrices for success, why were they there in the first place? Were they there to impress people? Did you wanna hire salary to do what? Is it to have more spending money to just spend, or is there a need for that? You want that better role or that, higher role. Why is that? Is it to impress people, or is that something that you've always wanted? You need to go back to the drawing board and really, understand your why. That's the thing. You have to understand why that's there. Once you get it, or once you understand it, it's easy to prioritize. But if you go back to the drawing board and you see the reason why you have this is maybe, so you can show up on social media, or, you need to impress your mom, or you need to impress someone, that's not something that should be high up in your list of priorities, and you can always reshuffle that way.
I love that. There are a couple more related to the kind of going part-time. I think a lot of people are thinking about transitions. So there are a few more on that note that I want to make sure we hit from the audience. We have about 10 minutes left because it's gone so quickly. Let's see. How do you balance asking tough questions in an interview or making asks of your current employer without having that negatively impact your development and future opportunities. So asking those tough questions without having that impact you negatively.
I can take that quickly. I find framing is a big piece of that. Saying, I want to ask these questions because they're important to me and my family, because then I really want to go all in on the rest of this process. Framing that, once I have these answered, then I'm going to be ready, can be one way to do that. Another way is kind of saying, this is how I do my best work. You hired me to do my best work, and I owe it to you as my team to tell you how I do my best work. It can be good, because what manager doesn't want their team to do their best work, right? What founder doesn't want to do their best work themselves and have their team do their best work? So that reframe, I find, can be really valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I would just add too that I love the concept of tactical empathy. And, when you're going into a conversation like that, starting with empathy for the other person, right? So that's what empathy is. Of course, you want their empathy, but you don't get it until you give it. And so saying, I want to be of value here. I appreciate XYZ LMNOP before you launch into your asks is really helpful along the lines of framing. Neha, what is your thought? This is perfect for you. What is your thought on putting a mom pause or parenting pause on a resume?
Oh, I love that question, because I think we touched on this earlier, but there's so much growth that happens in your pause. And Nikki, I love that anecdote that that a hiring manager valued that, because I think there's a shifting tide to recognize that is sometimes necessary and sometimes a woman's choice to focus on their family, but they're also growing alongside, right? So talking about the leadership skills that happen in the home, my favorite anecdote is about Nancy Pelosi, that she didn't start working in Congress until her last of her 5 children had graduated. And she talks about how she learned dealing with difficult personalities, empathy, working through negotiations, all in the home. And mind you, there's also so many soft skills and personal growth areas that patience being one that expands so much in the home. The other thing I would say is there's so much gray area that's blurring the edges between stay-at-home and working mother. Nikki, I think your work's so important in that way, because it opens up that pool of gray area jobs. So flex time, consulting, freelance. And if you have done anything during your career pause in your kid's school, I mean, I worked, I volunteered for a year as the family education chair, and did it include 2 different events a year? Sure. But it helped me stay organized. It helped with time management. It kept me feeling connected. And don't feel shy to talk about that under in your traditional career pause, but absolutely owning that space gives you an opportunity to talk about the leadership skills as well as anything else you did that was non-traditional.
There's also great data and research on why mothers make the best employees, period, and leaders, period, and how empathy is the number one character trait needed in a successful leader. And so I would encourage you to just dig into that research a little bit. Data points are great things to be able to throw out to really claim your truth in that space. Okay, would love if we had one more above this I want to get to really quickly. Why is job sharing not a bigger thing? I don't see why 2 moms splitting one position shouldn't be appealing to an employer. Do you want to take that, Nikki, or did anybody else have thoughts on that one?
I'll just chime in really quickly. Nikki, I think you were getting to this on one of the other questions when someone was talking about a corporation wherein it might be trickier to find a part-time role. I would say, first of all, you can lead that way. And I would look to mentors across the industry, not just within your corporation. So say you work in tech or say you work in HR, look for models in HR groups that are industry-wide, because there are different constructs that work within different companies, and nothing stops you from coming to the table with a plan based on, to Erin's point and Nikki's point, research and detail that you can collect from certainly people within your company, but also outside. And I think that empowerment comes when you can own your story, but also own your vision and plan for how it's going to go. So mentors are a really valuable thing.
Absolutely. I would also add to that just be careful of the word of both. Both is a very dangerous word in an organization. So if you're sharing a job or you're co-leading, be very clear on who's responsible for what deliverables so that each person is successful. This is actually a trap can be a trap for a lot of women who are looking to kind of propel their careers inside of an organization. So if you do go the job sharing route, be very clear on who owns what execution and deliverable. Okay, rapid fire questions. I don't know why I keep doing this. I guess it's my new thing for today. Okay, rapid fire. Number one tip you are following yourself in order to kind of redefine success for this new way forward. What's your number one tip you're following yourself? Let's start with you, Nia.
I would say take time to smell the roses. Take time to celebrate your wins, no matter how small they are. In the past, I've been going like just on and on and on. And I say, I'm going to celebrate once I accomplish this big goal. And then it comes, but I'm knee deep in accomplishing another goal. And I don't take time out to celebrate, to, give myself a pat on the back and say, you actually did that. I would say just, take time to smell the roses. Take time to celebrate your wins.
I love that. How about you, Neha?
I would just say, no matter what you're choosing at any given time in your version of work and motherhood, you get to embrace what you're gaining and accept what has to give. There's always something you have to give. And just going in with a clarity in that gives you so much control. You can always revisit down the line. And that, that's macro in, early motherhood. And it's also month to month. I'll give you the example of September. I knew I was going to be moving projects slowly because I was embracing that I was going to be present to transition my kids into the school year. So, you can do that on a year-to-year basis, at whatever increment of time makes sense to you. But, I agree with you, Erin. Bullshit. Balance is bull, and you get to figure out your version and get comfortable with it and clear with it on your own.
Love it. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, for me, it goes back to boundaries. I love the session that Dr. Becky had earlier around that. And the mantra I keep kind of trying to own is saying yes to something is saying no to something.
Mm-hmm. That is so important. And baked into this, I've seen 3 very inspiring, hardworking, committed women. And I want to encourage all of you and all of us to make sure that we factor things that just light us up into our picture of whole. We're talking so much about what we give to our employer, what we give to our partner, our families. We give and give. And I hope that we will include in our list of success and our list of what makes us whole, however you look at it, something that really fills you up and connects you to your essence, and you remember the woman inside even before she was a mother. So thank you so much for all of your wisdom today, your insights. I'm sure this conversation really served everybody listening. And thank you again, Mother Honestly, for having all of us.